Hi guys, my name is Camilla. These are my kitties, Trico and Drogo. And today is my birthday. I'm turning 30. I don't think that being 30 makes you old, and I don't think it's the end of life, or that it's the end of your life. Youth. Of course there are some changes, especially physical ones, that I'm already noticing. But we're not old, just to leave it there. What happens is that I'm very reflective, and I think that we really start to think differently about our lives, and perhaps this deconstruction of our versions of the past that are very much in contrast. Something very different from who we were and who we are today. I'm going to share here with you all the things that are going through my head. Tell you a little about my story, because maybe I'll watch this video when I'm 40, and I'll remember that day, and 10 years from now, I'll think about totally different things. Well, I think that my generation, our generation, those people from the 90s, right? We were really sold on the idea. I do not know if it was sold, but it really was like that at the time. But our generation lived something that was like this. It was a very straight path we studied at school, and then, when you graduated from high school, you would choose a course, and then you would take the entrance exam. You would pass, you would go to college after you. If you left college, you would work in that forever. You would be happy. Possibly get married, and have children, and that's it. Nowadays, I don't think so, but at the time, I was starting to build my dreams, and what I understood about my dreams were based on this idea at school when I was in elementary school. I think that was where a lot of the depression I've been experiencing since then started. I went through a very strong bullying episode. I changed schools. Then in high school things weren't easy either. And I remember that in high school, this feeling of comparison with other people already started, because I remember that most of my classmates already knew what they wanted to do. They wanted to be a lawyer. They wanted to be a doctor. They wanted to be something like that. And I didn't know what I wanted. Because at that time, I didn't even think I would get far, because my depression was very strong. I was a teenager. Rebel without a cause, annoying. And I didn't think about it so much that I left high school already a little frustrated, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it was a very turbulent period. I spent a whole year without doing anything. I still had the privilege of my parents tried a lot. There was a time when I went to see a psychologist or psychiatrist, because I really didn't want to do anything. I had no vision for anything. I remember that eventually things started to improve a little, and kind of by luck, I took a little entrance exam and got into one. Technical course in business administration. It was good that I took this course, because even though I didn't see any sense in it, but it was good, because at least it was something there. I met a person who I am. I have always been fluent in English, right? And I thought it was special. I didn't think it was something worthy of being transformed into anything. And there I met a person who paved a path for me that was so unexpected, and that person recommended me to an English school to be an English teacher. And it was the first time I went with my face and courage. At that time I was really in the mood, and I ended up falling in love with it, and it was a very beautiful feeling of, wow, now I found what is my purpose. What is my path in life? Finally, this was it. After 2 years I left school. I was very happy. I really enjoyed being teacher, and that gave me a great deal of encouragement. I had this feeling that now it will eventually happen. I was so motivated, and I became so passionate about teaching, right, that I decided to study literature. I thought, okay, I'm a teacher. I like it to be a teacher, so I'm going to study literature, and I'm going to study English and Portuguese, because I've always been passionate about literature and writing, and I would love to teach those things. I started college, and I left the interior of São Paulo. I left a city of 0 inhabitants to come here to Paraná, and I came to study in Curitiba. This was a huge shock. I had already lived without my parents before. I had already lived in São Paulo for a short period of time with my sister, but living alone was not my thing. This in itself was a huge shock, and I went through absurd difficulties, so I had to learn that I forget the first night I had a fever, and it hit me, my God, if I don't take care of myself, no one will. Because I'm alone, I don't have my parents anymore, and now college and all that stuff. I arrived with that dreamy feeling that not now, it's going to be really cool. They'll be the best years of my life. In fact, they were the worst years of my life. It was a time when my depression got much worse. I developed other problems. I had an eating disorder. I had horrible things like that maybe will stay for us. Next videos, but the college experience was another huge disappointment, precisely because I thought it would be that beautiful thing from the movies, or what people said. Wow, college is really cool, you'll make friends. Your world will open up, and I even think it has its good sides, right? Because really the good part of college is that I felt like I left that cocoon. The world stopped being the size of my city of 30, 0 inhabitants, and became much bigger. I also started working at an English school here, that the overall experience was very negative. I had several frustrations, and the more I remember that time I thought, wow, I'm going to get a good job in a big city, and it was, oh. What a shame. I don't like to remember who I was, because I allowed people to walk all over me. But maybe I'll leave that for a next video. I was working at this school, and I did very bad decisions. I decided to dedicate myself too much to this job, and I dropped out of college, and from there, it was already an interrupted episode in my life in itself. So I continued working a lot. It was a time when I worked from 8 to 10 at night, and sometimes I even worked for more than one school, and it all got much worse. This episode of my life was like a blur, because I didn't live it, right? And then I was already 24 or 25, and I was completely surprised by the pandemic. So at the time that the pandemic started, I was still moving more towards improvement and healing than the opposite, because I was bad before. But then, it was the time that I adopted my kittens in 2019. It was the time that I started therapy. I found a wonderful therapist. I was thinking about going back to college. Actually, I had even enrolled in another college. But then the pandemic came, and with it came that absurd grief and that thing. I need to be close to my family. But being close to my family would mean denying the whole life I was building here in Curitiba. I held on. I got my cats. We went back to my parents' house, and I had that feeling again that I thought I was on the right path, and then it fell when I was there at my parents' house. It was really good. Sorry, love. I scared you. Sorry, baby, sorry. I'm telling our story when I went back to my parents' house. My parents welcomed me. My brother also came back for a while. My sister also came back. And it was great. Everyone was together. And I gradually rebuilt myself in a way that I left a lot of things behind. And I had my moment of feeling the grief of having not lost, but having been increasingly distancing myself from that life that I had built here, even though it wasn't a good life. A little, like in a really crazy plot twist, I used to watch a lot of YouTubers during school and some streamers, and I had the dream of starting to do lives mainly playing video games, and then during the pandemic, I decided it was time because I wasn't working. I still spent a period teaching online, but I started doing lives, and it was one of the best decisions I made. I started playing video games, and people started finding me. And I started building something that I have today, as a family, even as friends, as people who are with me there every day watching me play video games. Watching things with me, spending time with me, right? And that was really good. But even though I was very happy doing game live streams, I still had this feeling that I was behind. Because even in this medium of creating streaming content, I feel like all these things got worse. I still feel that this was what gave me the biggest reality check. As there will always be someone ahead of you. There will always be someone better, more talented. You will simply always be behind, right? There will always be someone ahead of you with more privileges. but finally more open doors and more facilities or talents than you. This was also a huge frustration for me, and because I don't know if I had a very romantic vision that, oh no, but when I find what I want to do, then everything will be incredible, and I will wake up every day happy and wow, right? It's not quite like that. At the beginning of 2024, I decided to go back to Curitiba, and I thought I decided to come here because I already knew the place. So I thought it would be easier, mentally, for me to come to a city that I already knew than to start somewhere from scratch. I confess that I even thought about living in Paulo, but it's a slightly more expensive capital. A little further away from my parents, and here in Curitiba, it's the opposite of that, right? This experience of being here again, of guiding my life alone, has also been frustrating, but also a long, constant learning experience. So it's very good for me to have this looking at things nowadays, and seeing things changing every day, little by little. I came here, and then I brought my kittens, and I continue doing lives, and I still feel very far behind in life. Very much. But today, and it is so I want to end this video with this message, is that all these things that I commented on, all these stories that I mentioned, all these lows that I had, they were followed by a response to that, a reaction to that. Once at a time, when I was crying a lot, I was sad. My mother said something like, "You've hit rock bottom, daughter. From here on, any movement you make going up is better than where you were before, right?" And that's the thought I have, people. Even though I feel behind, and even though a lot of things haven't worked out exactly how I wanted, or I had an expectation of something, and it went there, and it went wrong, and it changed, and it went in totally different directions, I had a reaction to that. As long as you are reacting to the things that happen to you, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be grand movements. Don't have to be any of that every day. If you make a movement contrary to what pulls you down, or that makes you believe that you are going backwards, you are regressing, you are already creating your path, and that doesn't exist. Right, people, there is no such thing like this. There is a right thing, or just one thing for you to do. And while you're here, while I'm here, while we're here, we have the strength to continue, even if that means you feel very frustrated, and you have to do frustrated, but if you can still do something good, it's on your way. If you're still here, then things they can still change. Earlier, I read a sentence that I also feel very frustrated for having lost some dreams. For example, I dreamed of being a mother. I dreamed of being a young mother. I wanted to be a mother like that before 30, and that will not happen because now I'm 30, and I'm not just a mother of a kitten, but I can rebuild this dream of being a mother. I don't know if it's possible in the next 5 years. I also had the dream of learning to play the drums, and who says I can't do it? Now and play drums. I didn't learn to play drums when I was 20, but I can learn now. I've always been very depressed. I've always had social anxiety. I've never had friends right, but I can still go after these things. Because I'm still here, until very recently, I started going to the gym, and I'm going religiously. I'm going 3 times a week. Barrancos. But I'm going. I've been going out alone sometimes, and I've been trying to reconnect with people who maybe could see me becoming friends. Right. Things are never certain, and they're never definitive in the sense that it kind of didn't happen. So lost forever. It wasn't. So no, it won't be forever. This will only happen on the day you're not here. But while we're here, we can still rebuild our dreams and realign the route. If you liked this video, leave your like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching. So far, I'm very happy to have started this project, and it's always been a dream of mine. I've always had very positive references like this from YouTubers and sharing stories. And at some point, I realized that all these things, all these stories that I shared, that they can help people. And if I am helping someone, a person, that is, and if I can be the person I wish I had at the time I needed it, I am already very happy. Thank you very much. You liked it, love.